ironic, they think they become millionaires. So the one thing I say to them always is, if you want to become a writer and you think you will be filthy rich, don't become a writer. Because I always tell them the example, if I sell this book for $15, the writer gets, I always let the children guess, the writer gets about $1. Or let's say maybe if they have a good contract, they get $1.50. So the children then can imagine in their heads how many books they will have to sell to earn a living, which is still for most writers very, very hard. I was very lucky, but it nevertheless took me 10 years to really properly make a living with that job, because it's not easy. But nevertheless, I'm thrilled that so many children think about it, because it will give us so many good storytellers. They start so early by now. I just did a competition on my website, and the stories were so good that I could not pick one winner. I had to pick 15 from America, 7 from Germany, and 3 from Spain.
Wow.
So it was impossible. And as I had promised every winner an original drawing of myself, I was in trouble. But I did. So it's very interesting what, and as in America you have always in the schools the approach that children write very early. I love that. In German schools they don't do that. And I think it's a very, very good thing, because you teach children very early to express themselves in words. And I can't wait to see how many writers will come out of this. I think it will be very exciting. Any more questions? Or shall I give you the questions? How many languages are you translated into? What language do you write in? Those are some of the questions that I often get. I'm translated into 50 languages, and I write in German. Because my only time to try to write in English was a disaster. What I learned is, if you write prose, you need to be able to break the rules. You need to know what you can do with a language, unusual things you can do with a language, and I can do that in German, but I cannot do that in English. In English, I still have to follow the rules. So, do you have any questions?
I've seen you like 15 times.
Yeah. She knows all the answers, and could have you answer the questions.
Sometimes.
Exactly.
But we do have giveaways for people who ask questions.
I will also anyway. Am I allowed to do those giveaways and sign them anyway? Even though they may not ask questions?
Yeah, but there are none.
Oh, I have brought...
She has extras.
I brought extras. So you can keep those for the library, and then I do for everybody who wants one with a name and a signature.
Perfect. So last call for questions. Y'all just anxious to talk to me, get signatures?
Really?
Okay, I have a question before we finish. Do you have a name yet for the sequel to Reckless?
Yes, in Germany it is called Living Shadows, and it comes out, and the booksellers will get the book this month.
Oh, okay.
And the Germans will sell it in September. Sadly, because there has to be a translation, and the translation has just been edited in English, my American publishers decided to publish in April next year, which I think is endlessly far away. But the booksellers and the librarians will get ours,
Okay.
which I think is September.
I'm going to put my name on that list.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, anyone have any other questions? Yeah.
Where are your kids today?
Well, my son is 17-year-old and is just with his new girlfriend. So we dropped him there before we came here. And my daughter is 22 and lives in London. And I go there on Friday. So yeah, I'm still dealing with them. But now they're like, Mom, I'm fine. It's not that I believe that all the time, but yeah. Yes?
Do you travel a lot?
Yes, I do. I would say I go to Europe about every 6 weeks because my daughter is there. And you know, when you're 22 years old says, I miss you, Mom, you're on the plane immediately. And Ben loves to travel with me, so, and luckily I have a school that allows that. But this year, for example, we go to Madagascar in August. I went to Moscow last year for the first time, because the wonderful thing is, all the publishers from all over the world invite me all I do not travel as much as I would like to for them because of the children. I just turned down an invitation to Delhi, to India. I just turned down an invitation to China. And it's always hard, but I say to myself until the boy's still at home. So yeah, nevertheless, I have to tour for Reckless in November. I have to tour in America, of course, next year. But I don't do much. I always do like 4 or 5 days. I don't like to tour longer because I think I like writing better. And I now go and will do some events in Germany and in England in a week. Is there another one? You're done.
What other hobbies do you have?
Well, hobbies is with a passionate writer, you know, it doesn't leave much room. You know, it's really whatever I read, whatever I come along, I'm like, oh, I could put this in the book, and oh, I could use that. So I do all the research, I do much of the traveling for the books. I do love my very wild garden. I have a vegetable herb wilderness garden. I love that very much. I have a dog who wants to be walked and kept busy. And of course I have my kids. So the traveling takes a lot. But yeah, apart from the knitting, when I watch my favorite TV series.
Okay, now we have to ask what your favorite series is.
At the moment it's a very, very strange BBC series. It's completely idyllic and placed in the 19th century somewhere in the country in England and is as sweet as it was never there. And it's called, what is it called? Larkrise Candleford. I'm completely obsessed with it and she is to be blamed because she put me on it. And before that we were obsessed with Downton Abbey. So that's my European soul. If I had my favorite American ones was Lost Until It Let Me Down. Because I didn't like how it ended. And then, yes, that's my all-time favorite. Battlestar Galactica is for me the best TV series ever made, and it will never be another one. It can be made as good as that.
So do you live here or do you live in...
I live here, but because I have my daughter in London, I have always one foot on the other side.
You know, like two...
So I live here full time for 7 years now, but let's say I'm at least 4, 5 to 6 times in Europe a year. Always for shorter trips, but it's also for me very important because I have very passionate publishers in Europe, and it's very interesting that publishing in America is much more commercialized, much more about the big numbers, whereas in Europe I have a Swedish publisher who still gets very passionate about every book I give him, even though he may know, oh, of this one I may sell 500 copies. He doesn't care. It's a different approach. They're often very tiny companies, family owned. I don't know how long they will be there, but they are still there, and for them, you know, for my small publishers, I go all the time to Europe to at least in some way.
So if it gets published there, could they like see what has happened with that story there and want it here?
Yeah, it has happened like this. For example, the Thief Lord was already published in Germany when it was bought in America. And the same is true of Ghost Hunter and all those books. But now they mostly want my new books. I try to convince my American publishers to do my backlist. There's no chance. You know, I have 50 books that are not translated into English. They are translated into Spanish, but not into English. And when librarians and teachers ask me and say, Cornelia, don't you have anything for the smaller, younger ones? I said, yes, I do, but it's not translated because we will not sell 20,000 copies. And that's a problem which I now have to deal with, and I talk to librarians about it, I talk with teachers, because I may have to do self-publishing for those books, where I say, okay, I don't want to do a profit, I just want to get the money in that I put in.